I was 31 when my family's diner nearly collapsed. McAllister's Diner had been in our family since my great-grandmother Agnes opened its doors back in 1954 in the small coastal town of Riverton. Armed only with an ancient grill and a secret pancake recipe, she made it legendary. My mom carried it into its golden years, making the diner a community landmark. We seemed unbreakable, until suddenly we weren't. First, there was the economic downturn of 2020. Then came rising food prices, competition from chain restaurants, and a fire that gutted half the kitchen. One disaster followed another until we were just weeks away from shutting down. I'll never forget the rainy night my parents called me over, bills scattered across the dining table, Mom's coffee untouched, cold, Dad's voice quiet, defeated. "We're going under," he whispered, eyes downcast. "Unless?" He paused. Mom gently placed her hand on mine, her voice firm but weary. "Unless someone new steps in." They meant me, of course they did. At the time, I was thriving as a marketing director for a trendy cafe brand in Seattle. At 31, I was finally finding my footing. My career was exciting, exhausting but promising. I had dreams and a path I'd worked hard to carve out. But looking at my father's tired eyes, I knew I'd already made my choice. "We're not asking you to sacrifice your future," my dad quickly added. "We'll make you a full partner. Once the diner recovers, it's yours. You have our word." Promise. A powerful word. Back then, it felt genuine. So I quit my job, moved into a small apartment above the diner, and woke every morning at 4 a.m., cooking, cleaning, marketing, managing finances, transforming the menu. I poured myself into McAllister's, and slowly, steadily, the diner came back to life. I launched online orders, designed a seasonal specials menu, and soon, Riverton Weekly ran a glowing article on our incredible revival. Locals filled McAllister's again. People thanked me warmly, genuinely grateful. But I never needed praise. I believed in the promise. "You brought us back," Dad said softly one night after closing, locking the diner's doors behind him. "You truly did, Rachel." Mom hugged me tightly. "We'll never forget what you did for us." Neither would I, because exactly 4 years after I returned, the diner finally turned a genuine profit, not just survival, real growth. That morning my hands shook as I double-checked the balance sheet, printed carefully like a treasured keepsake. "We did it," I whispered, the words barely audible through my excitement. Dad's smile flickered briefly, strangely hollow. "Yeah, we did." I wish I'd paid more attention to his hesitation. 1 week later, we hosted a small gathering at McAllister's to celebrate. Loyal customers stopped by, and the staff raised glasses of sparkling juice and toast. Even my younger brother Ben appeared, fresh from his year-long soul-searching tour that included 3 carefree months in Bali and 1 questionable tattoo. Ben had never woken at dawn for the diner, never scrubbed a greasy grill, argued with stubborn suppliers, or felt tears freezing on his cheeks while desperately searching for ingredients during a snowstorm. He was just Ben, easygoing, carefree, and universally adored. Late that evening, after everyone had left, my parents called us to the diner's small office. "We wanted you both here for this," Mom announced cheerfully. My pulse quickened. This was finally it. My moment. Recognition for years of sacrifice. "Your father and I have decided the diner will go to Ben," she finished, eyes shining. I laughed, thinking surely it was a strange joke, until their faces remained serious. "What?" My father spoke softly. "Rachel, you've done so much, but Ben's the son. It's tradition. The diner always passes from father to son." The ground beneath me vanished. If you've ever sacrificed everything for a promise that wasn't kept, make sure to subscribe, because what Rachel did next changed everything. "I gave you 4 years," I said, my voice barely audible. "I sacrificed my career. You promised." "Don't make this emotional, Rachel," Mom interjected. "You'll always have a place here." A place like I was just another employee. They handed it all to Ben, effortlessly. At first, I said nothing, but a week later, I quietly picked up the phone and dialed a lawyer. Her name was Miss Carter, recommended by a friend who'd experienced something similar with her family's vineyard. For the first time in years, I didn't step foot in McAllister's at dawn. No scent of fresh coffee, no sound of bacon sizzling. Instead, I lay awake, numb, staring at the ceiling. How do you move forward when those you trusted most betray you? There was no confusion, only brutal, undeniable clarity. The promise hadn't. Maybe it was a rushed decision, made in excitement. Maybe they'd realized the cruelty of giving my hard-earned success. Excited for the next chapter at McAllister's, Ben's first day as official manager. Attached was a photo, Ben grinning behind my counter, wearing my apron like he'd earned it. Something inside me snapped. I pulled out my laptop and opened a folder labeled Recovery Plan. Inside were spreadsheets, detailed marketing strategies, all mine, yet handed casually to Ben, as though it was an inheritance he'd earned. That's when I called Miss Carter again. After patiently listening, she asked one crucial question. Did your parents ever put their promise in writing? I paused, heart pounding. Not officially, but yes. I have emails, texts. My dad even messaged me last year. This diner will be yours soon. Perfect, Miss Carter said. We have something solid here. Hope flickered inside me, followed swiftly by anxiety. Could I really go through with this? Sue my own parents? Carter paused, as if sensing my hesitation. Rachel, family is built on loyalty, not just blood. If they deliberately misled you to exploit your labor, it's not just unethical, it's potentially illegal. Illegal. The word reverberated in my mind. I wasn't overreacting. This wasn't drama. It was about justice, about truth. I had every right to fight for myself. That night, I meticulously went through every email, text, and file my parents ever shared with me. Meeting notes, diner improvement plans, vendor agreements. Mom even sent an email titled Draft Ownership Transfer Review Needed. Yet that formal transfer never happened. Dad included me in every operational choice, every tough decision, but never legally. No ownership stake, no managerial title, not even a formal acknowledgement. I had responsibility without authority. Miss Carter carefully reviewed every piece of evidence and confirmed we had grounds for a strong case: equitable ownership, fraud, promissory estoppel, legal terms that quickly became my shield. Yet still I paused. They were my family after all. But any remaining doubt disappeared when I returned to McAllister's to collect my personal items that weekend. Ben barely glanced up from his phone. Hey Rach, all good? Just grabbing my things, I replied stiffly. He leaned comfortably in my old chair. Wild how things turned out, huh? Mom and Dad were just waiting for the right time, I guess. I stared at him. You actually believe you earned this? He smirked casually. You did plenty, sure, but come on. You just kept it alive. I'll take it to the next level. And right then, my decision was made. By the following Monday, Miss Carter filed the lawsuit. The next time my phone buzzed, it wasn't a cheerful group text from Mom. It was a notification. They weren't sending messages anymore, they were sending attorneys. But I wasn't afraid, because this time I had more than memories and promises. I had proof. The lawsuit didn't just rattle the diner's foundation, it tore apart the last illusion that we were still a family. By Friday, a letter arrived from my parents' legal team, neatly worded, cold as steel. It denied any promise of ownership, framed my contributions as familial support, and claimed I'd been compensated by living rent-free above the diner. I read it 3 times. Rent-free? I'd paid for groceries, covered utilities, even bought a new espresso machine with my own savings when the old one sputtered out midwinter. I never clocked out. Weekends, holidays, my own birthday. I worked through it all. Now they were erasing that? And Ben? Nothing. No call, no text, not even a half-hearted thumbs-up emoji. Miss Carter warned me, this kind of betrayal doesn't happen overnight. It's slow, quiet, usually built on years of assumptions. She was right. The signs had always been there. I just didn't want to believe them. We moved ahead, filed claims for breach of promise, fraudulent inducement, and unjust enrichment. Translation? They used me, promised me the business, then handed it to someone else. My parents hired a top-tier downtown firm, the kind known for scare tactics and shiny letterheads. But I had something better than their intimidation: truth and a digital paper trail. Emails, shared Google Docs. A voice message from Dad: "Once we're back on our feet, Rachel takes over officially." We submitted everything. The court scheduled a hearing. When I walked in, wearing that too serious navy blazer, my heart thundered. But I stood tall. Across the courtroom, my parents looked away. And when the judge asked if any ownership had ever been legally transferred to Ben, their lawyer paused, just long enough for me to realize I had a chance. Then came a weak response from their side. "Not until recently." "Recently?" the judge asked, eyes narrowing. "Yes, Your Honor, the ownership transfer was finalized after the business became financially stable." The judge raised an eyebrow. "And prior to that?" "It was understood within the family," their lawyer replied. Miss Carter stood without hesitation. "With all due respect, Your Honor, that understanding only held when it served the defendants. When Rachel rebuilt the diner, they honored it. The moment it became profitable, they discarded it. It wasn't a win, not yet, but the mood shifted. My parents suddenly looked smaller, uncertain. Ben wasn't even present. He hadn't shown up once. That evening, I got a message from my Aunt Joanne, Dad's younger sister. "Rachel, I just found out what's going on. I had no idea. I'm so sorry. If you need anything, I'm here." The first crack in the wall of silence. Then more followed. A former waitress messaged me. "We always knew you were the backbone of McAllister's." One of our vendors left a voicemail, offering to testify about the time I negotiated fair contracts when no one else would return our calls. Longtime customers started commenting on Facebook when the news spread. "Rachel's why we kept going back. Without her, it's just another diner." Still, the nights were hard. I questioned myself, wondered if I was being too harsh, if I should walk away and let them keep what they stole. But I'd remember Ben's smug grin when I asked if he thought he'd deserve it, and how quickly my parents erased me from a story I helped write. This wasn't about revenge, it was about respect. I wasn't asking for more than I earned, I was asking for what I was promised. And for the first time, I wasn't asking gently. A year ago, I'd have laughed at the thought of facing my own family in court over a diner. Now, all I could do was breathe. No theatrics, no shouting, just cold lights. Quiet tension. And for once, I wasn't on the defensive. Miss Carter had built a solid case, not just on broken promises, but on everything I had done. "Your Honor," she began, flipping open a thick binder filled with color-coded tabs and my documentation. My client was not a passive presence in this business. She wasn't a casual assistant or a weekend volunteer. She was the operational lead, the branding architect, the crisis manager, the one who, by her parents' own words, saved McAllister's diner. She tapped the binder lightly for emphasis. And she was promised ownership in exchange for her labor. That promise informed every decision she made for 4 years. The judge nodded slowly, flipping through a stack of emails Miss Carter had submitted. Then she paused at one. A message from my father, dated just 11 months before everything collapsed. "Rachel, we're so close. I can't wait to put your name on the papers and finally make it official. You've earned this." It wasn't just an email, it was a flame, burning through every denial their lawyer offered. They argued it wasn't legally binding, that family understandings didn't equal contracts, that I stayed because I cared, not because I was obligated. But the judge wasn't buying it. "If this was all voluntary," she asked, "why did you repeatedly tell her ownership was coming?" My mother shifted in her seat, eyes darting. My father stared at the floor. Then he muttered, "We didn't think she'd take it this far." Not, "We didn't promise her." Not, "She misunderstood." Just, "We didn't think she'd fight back." There it was, the truth. They thought I'd stay quiet, keep showing up, be the good daughter who never asked for too much. But they had underestimated me, forgotten who I truly was. Outside the courthouse, the story started spreading. The Riverton Gazette ran a quiet piece. "Family Diner Lawsuit Highlights Gender Bias in Small Business Ownership." I didn't speak to reporters. I didn't need to. The headline said it all. This was never about ability. It was about being born in the wrong body for the role they'd already decided belonged to a son. One afternoon, stepping down the courthouse steps, I saw Ben, standing alone. He looked pale. Ben looked nervous. The usual smugness was gone, and its place was something like guilt, like someone who realized too late the ladder he'd climbed was built on someone else's back. "Rachel," he said quietly, "can we talk?" I kept walking. "Please," Ben called after me. "I didn't ask them to give it to me. I thought you knew that." I turned, calm, steady. "Did you ever tell them not to?" He paused. "Did you ever speak up when they erased me from everything I built?" Silence. That's what I thought. I walked away without another word. That night, Miss Carter called. The judge scheduled a mediation hearing Thursday, a final attempt before trial. "Are they nervous?" "They underestimated your documentation, and the press attention isn't helping them." I didn't smile. This wasn't revenge. It was truth. They had tried to write me out of the story I helped build, but the truth was louder now. This wasn't about who was more likable. It was about who showed up, who saved the business, who was promised the future. That Thursday I arrived early, neutral ground they called it, as if anything about this had been neutral. I wore my navy blazer, no makeup, just focus. My parents walked in late. My father gave a short nod. My mother avoided eye contact. Ben didn't come. The mediator, a silver-haired woman with a steady voice, opened calmly. "We're here to find a fair..." Miss Carter presented our case, clear and factual. She submitted emails, voice recordings, marketing plans, financial comparisons, proof. Their lawyer called my role family help. Then the mediator turned to my father. "Mr. McAllister, what was your understanding when Rachel came back?" He hesitated. I leaned in. "Tell the truth, Dad." Finally he said it. "We promised her the business. We just didn't think she'd hold us to it." Silence. And then I spoke. "I didn't come back for money. I came back because I believed in our family. And you used that." My mother whispered, "It was tradition. We didn't mean to hurt you." "Tradition?" I said. "You mean sons inheriting what daughters earn? That tradition?" No one replied. The mediator cleared her throat. "Let's move forward." We spent the next hour negotiating, and I didn't budge. I wasn't there for a payout or an apology. I wanted ownership, something binding, something real. Eventually they caved. We settled on 51% ownership, officially mine, within 30 days. Ben would keep 49% and remain. I would oversee finances, branding, hiring, everything. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. As I gathered my folder, my father tried to speak. I raised a hand. "Let's not pretend this didn't happen. We all made choices, now we live with them." Outside the sun was warm. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt whole. 30 days later the paperwork was finalized. Seeing my name as majority owner felt strange, but right. The staff greeted me carefully that first morning. I made it clear no one was being punished. This was about building something better. Ben avoided me, but he showed up, and I let him. Because real change doesn't come from gloating. It comes from rebuilding stronger. If my story resonated with you, leave a comment, tell me what part stayed with you, or what you would have done in my shoes. And if you've ever been overlooked or underestimated, remember this: you have the right to speak up, to take up space, and to fight for what you've earned. Don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. Stand tall, choose truth over tradition. If you believe in stories that empower and voices that won't be silenced, subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything, and it helps stories like mine reach the people who need to hear them.